Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a piece of media that is so strange, it's become one of the internet's most compelling unsolved mysteries.
So let me just start with a question. What if a children's show was actually documenting its creator's mental breakdown? Because really, that's the central question behind this bizarre 62-minute VHS tape from the 90s known only as Nanny Lynn.
You see, on the surface, this thing says it's children's entertainment. But what's actually on the tape? Yeah, that's something else entirely. It genuinely feels like you're watching a storyteller just slowly lose their grip as the film goes on. So the whole vibe is this wholesome experience, right? It's got a soft-spoken, kind of grandmotherly narrator, but what you actually get is this morbid, confusing, and often really disturbing journey that just gets progressively weirder and weirder with each story.
And really, this quote from a viewer just hits the nail on the head. It perfectly captures that feeling you have after sitting through the whole thing. It's an experience that leaves you completely baffled, trying to find some kind of logic that, let's be honest, just isn't there.
Okay, so to really get why this thing is so bizarre, you gotta look at the three stories it contains. They don't just tell tales, they show a complete and total escalation, from kinda strange to absolutely unhinged. The first story is, honestly, the most normal of the bunch. I mean, almost deceptively so. It has a clear, if kinda simple plot and a moral at the end you can actually recognize. It sets this baseline, making you think, okay, maybe this is just a quirky, low-budget kids show. But this is where the normalcy slams to a halt. And then we get to the second story, Shanita, and things just completely fly off the rails. This tale is just a chaotic mess. You've got a girl raised by wolves who eats a bloody rat, hallucinates a T-Rex, and then time travels to save the dinosaurs, only to accidentally make them kill each other. It all ends in this tragic, pointless way, and it's all shadowed by a really disturbing real-world allegory.
But here's the part that's really unsettling. At the very beginning, the narrator explicitly says Shanita is named after a place where something very bad had happened. Now that detail, plus all the themes of being torn from home, has led viewers to think it might be some kind of confusing allegory for the Srebrenica massacre, even though the story itself never comes out and says it.
And that brings us to the grand finale of this tape's complete narrative collapse. In the third and by far most deranged story, Bob the Blob, any little piece of structure or sanity just completely dissolves into nothing.
Just listen to this. The story follows Bob through this relentless, nonsensical cycle of creation, gruesome death, and then resurrection. He gets electrocuted, eaten by a rat, dissolved in a bath, and then, in a truly bizarre moment, he eats his dead cockroach friend before growing wings and literally melting his own head off. It completely, utterly defies any kind of storytelling logic.
And the wildest part? This line is delivered in that same sweet, calm, grandmotherly voice. It's describing a doctor launching a rocket with an antibiotic to shrink a giant cat. The contrast is just staggering. And it leaves you with one overwhelming question. Who on earth made this, and why?
So you're probably asking the same thing I was. Where in the world did this tape come from? Well, that question is just as mysterious as its content. Its journey from some unmarked VHS tape to an object of internet fascination is a wild story all by itself.
You have to understand, for more than 10 years, only a third of this film, just the Shanita story, was even available online. This fragmented version just made the mystery even deeper, fueling all kinds of speculation, until finally the full hour-long tape was released to the public.
This right here, this statement from Aaron Delaway of Hanson Records, is pretty much our only solid piece of evidence about where the physical tape came from. It confirms it was just this obscure, unmarked tape from the late 90s, saved from being lost forever and spread around through bootleg copies.
So even though this tape was basically a ghost, a dedicated community of internet sleuths started digging, and they've managed to piece together a few clues, turning this weird artifact into a genuine digital cold case. And their biggest lead? It all comes down to a copyright filing. Now, it's not for a video, but for an unreleased book series called Nanny Lynn from 2009. What's so compelling is that it shares the name. The person who filed it has a teaching background, and the P.O. box listed is just an hour away from where the tape was first copied. It's a pretty strong connection. And this is the part that drives investigators crazy. It's a dead end. People have tried to contact the person behind that copyright, but there's been no answer. So for now, the real identity of Nanny Lynn and the reason for these strange stories, it's still a complete mystery.
You know, this whole thing, this entire bizarre saga, it's the perfect example of a very specific kind of modern mystery, one that could only really exist and be investigated in the internet age.
It fits perfectly into this category that people call unclaimed media. Basically, it's art or content where we have no idea who made it or why. And honestly, that's what makes it so fascinating. It taps into our love of a good puzzle, leaving the story to be pieced together by the online communities trying to solve it. And that's really what makes Nanny Lin such a big deal in these circles. It sits right alongside other famous internet mysteries, like The Most Mysterious Song on the Internet, as this compelling collaborative search for answers. It's really a testament to the internet's power to preserve and probe these forgotten corners of media history.
So in the end, we're just left to wonder, right? Was this some bizarre art project, a failed educational series, or are we actually listening to the record of a creative mind just completely coming undone? Without an answer from the creator, the tape remains a fascinating, unsettling artifact, leaving us all to guess what on earth Nanny Lin was trying to say.